In other news, nearly 5 years after the destructive 2017 floods, flood mapping aimed at making the Okanagan more resilient is starting to have a tangible impact. In fact, the city of Vernon has recently completed its own floodplain maps and is now looking at upgrading infrastructure and changing development rules in a bid to minimize loss when waters rise. Megan Turcato explains.
Well, I wasn't happy with it, but I kind of knew that it could be like that, being so close to the lake.
Vernon resident James Dyson says he wasn't surprised to get a notice recently advising him his property is in a flood-prone area. The warning comes after the city and Okanagan Basin Water Board completed flood mapping showing elevated flood risk around the shore of Okanagan Lake and along creeks through the community.
What we looked at was the flood of 2017, which is the biggest flood in living memory. That flood, it was considered a 1 in 500 year event, but with climate change it will happen more and more frequently. And so we're asking communities to get ready now.
Vernon is trying to use the maps to prepare.
And we could see clearly where our culverts and our bridges were causing constriction and increasing the impact of potential for flood. Feasibility work has been approved by council to sort out where we can provide some new infrastructure in those places to prevent them from contributing to flooding.
The municipality is also considering regulating new development in floodplains. A key part of the new rules would likely be regulation on how high above sea level new buildings need to be built.
We're looking at this seriously now because we see the climate is changing. All the modeling shows that we'll get more high water events.
This week, Vernon Council deferred discussing the proposed new regulations, asking city staff to seek more information on the proposal.
Just to reconfirm, those numbers that we had in front of us were very significant, so we want to make sure we get it right. And we want to make sure that those levels, those construction levels, design construction levels, are absolutely right.
The Water Board says ideally all Okanagan communities will pass this type of flooding development regulation.
It's a responsible thing to do, to come up with strategies, and there are many strategies to increase flood resilience. All the communities need to do this, or else they're just putting people in harm's way.
But Dyson is wondering how the proposed regulation will impact those already living in flood zones.
I don't like it that it might affect the price of my house, but I can certainly understand why they would do it. The only thing is I wish that if they regulate it and the price of my house goes down, I'd like to get some compensation for it.
Another factor to consider as Vernon looks to prepare for future high water. Megan Turcato, Global News, Vernon.